They're saying that the way Rishi is going, he's steering the Tories towards as few as 130 seats at the next election. I mean, I don't think that's an exaggeration. What has he achieved? Nothing. People are so disillusioned with the Tories, they're in trouble, aren't they?
I think that they knew this was going to be a really tough year, right? Trying to play devil's advocate, play the government line here. When they got into office and they've got these 5 pledges, which were sort of focus grouped and polled to hell and back. So they knew these were the kind of things that mattered to people. And they're very difficult things to do. Do you remember at the start that he was told this is too easy, and then it turned out that these things are actually quite tough to get done. We've got one of them sort of done, inflation for now, although it might get back up again a little bit.
That's not him, though,
showed admirable spending restraint to make it not make any worse. That's one thing. You know, if by November next year he can get the other ones all done, then I think people will go, fair enough.
Stop the boats.
Well, that's we get to. So it's growing the economy and cutting waiting lists.
But it was actually
another one that Peter will remember, and stopping the boats.
It was actually the 4th of January that he said, judge me in a year. He made the speech this year on the 4th of January. So it's not in November by the election. It's by the 4th of January 2024, in less than a month's time, that he's saying he's going to do all these things. Cut inflation, stop the boats. What were the others? NHS waiting lists. There are 2 others in the economy.
Growing the economy,
reducing debt. That's it.
I mean, as I said earlier, I think he's a very intelligent guy, arguably one of our most intelligent ever prime ministers. However, I think he's a lousy politician. Am I right? I mean, don't say, judge me on these promises in 1 year's time. I mean, that is a suicide note.
I think he suffers from the fact that, as you say, he's a clever guy, and therefore thinks that if he just keeps working really, really hard, then things will happen. And I dare say it's what happens to really talented women in offices often, right? That they work really hard and think that they'll get rewarded for that. And sometimes you have to play the game in a different way to that. And he's trying to work so hard inside the strictures of government, which is set up to not allow him to succeed in these things. If the civil service thinks that it's Labour coming in a year's time, the gears will grind to a halt and make it even more difficult. And as you say, you have to start thinking outside the box with a bit of what's the American phrase, a Hail Mary pass.
Could someone else have done better, though? This is an interesting question because everyone's sort of saying that, you know, if Rishi fails at all of this, maybe there's going to be a new Jenny for us to enjoy early next year. But, you know, maybe there's going to be a whole other Conservative leadership contest.
Yeah.
But could anyone have done a better job?
Well, Liz Truss failed dramatically, Kwasi Kwarteng failed dramatically. Rishi Sunak, without being a sort of amateur psychologist here, every success he's had in his life has been just from working very hard. That's what he has done. And a lot of the success that he has enjoyed has come from that. So I'm not surprised that that is his attitude to life. Certainly, if there is to be a Conservative leadership contest, I mean, there are a lot of things that have to happen between now and then, but it does look as if there will be one probably before the year is out, because I predict the election will be October, November. Then at least one will have started. You've probably, depending who's left as well. I mean, there will be people.
Will they get rid of him before a general election?
I can't see that happening.
Will they sort of try and run a general election under him?
I mean, if he loses tonight, he will have to go into the general election either in the next few months or next.
Why will he have to?
Well, he doesn't have to, but certainly there are people like Sir Charles Walker, senior Conservative, saying that, look, once your flagship policy or one of your flagship policies fails and doesn't have the support of your own party, then it's game over. But then he would have to go to the country and say, hey, back me, even though those guys in my own party don't. In terms of what then happens with the Conservative leadership election, it depends who's left. I mean, Penny Mordaunt, for example, has a majority of about 15,000, but a lot of those votes, I would argue, would be because of her support for Brexit. That's probably not as relevant. Also, you'll have someone probably running from Reform UK in her constituency. So who's actually left? Will Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch, probably Grant Shapps, James Cleverly. There'll be others as well who will want to run. Maybe Robert Jenrick trying to run for Conservative leadership.